Hi folks, I'm Mike and I hope you're well. Welcome to the 9th episode of Fix My Mix. It's gone so quickly, hasn't it? Flying through these episodes. Thank you to everyone who is here in the chat. Lovely to see you here. Make sure you say hi so I can say hi back. We have a few of the regulars here. We have Ordered 29. Nice to see you in here. We also have Darren Jones. I've just been watching quite an interesting conversation in the chat from Darren Jones, who was talking about an old mix that he had that he's been working on, which he wrote for a little while ago, and he's not quite sure what to do with it. He says he's stuck in the 80s. I don't think it's too bad a place to be stuck, to be honest with you. I say follow your heart, Darren. If it comes out 80s, it comes out 80s. That's the way it is. We also have, let's just pull some names up here. We also have Robath. This is Robath Melted Cheese Home Studio. Love this. Very, very nice. So we have a few more here. I'll say hi to you as we go along. Make sure you hit that like button, of course, if you are watching at the moment, because it's going to let other people know they should come along and join the fun. I want to say thank you to the sponsors of the show, Distrokid.com. If you follow that link and it's down in the description, you're going to get a further 7% off of their already cheap price, and no extra cost to you, but a little bit of a benefit to me, which is nice. I just want to do a quick shout out to Pete Johns. He's not here, but he may watch the replay. You never know. I was watching his show earlier, and he had Patrick from the Garage Band Guide on there. Really nice chap. I've looked at his channel. I'm a subscriber of his channel, and they mentioned me, and I was a little bit starstruck because I thought, oh, Patrick knows who I am. They were talking about my thumbnails, and oh, thank you, Patrick. So yeah, I didn't know. Hi, Patrick. If you end up watching this, didn't know you watch my channel. You must come on as a guest sometime. Very nice to see that show. Obviously, Pete does some great shows over there. I have some really nice guests on the show today. A couple of my favourite people to have on the show. You've already seen it in the title, of course. Dan the Lonely Rock and Ricky T. Brown. I'll make them wait backstage a little bit, keep their egos in check, you know. But it's always nice to have them on the show. And I only told them about a minute before we started the show that I'm going to be putting them on the spot about something, okay? So hopefully this will just, you know, make sure that they're ready to go and they're alert, because I'm going to ask something of them and they're going to have to be experts. So nice to see Danny in here, Danny Gable. Always nice to see Raymond in here. And of course we have Mimo Japan in there moderating along with Kionna. I can't find your name here at the moment, Kionna, but I know you're in there. So lovely to see you here. If you don't know what this show is about, we listen to some people's mixes from the community, and I don't think any of us are really describing ourselves as experts, but we're putting ourselves forward as semi-educated listeners who may be able to give a perspective on a mix that perhaps you've been listening to a little bit too much and it's a bit too familiar, and sometimes some fresh ears can do you the world of good. Hot tip, probably best not to ask your partner or your mum what they think of your mix. They're probably not going to give you an honest opinion because they have to live with you, and no one likes to live with someone who's just had to receive some negative constructive criticism, of course. Anyway, I'm waffling on. I will say before I do bring my first guest in here, if you are in the chat, remember you're a very important part of this show. When we do listen to the songs later on, it's always invaluable to have your comments happening in the chat. So do make sure when the music is playing that you let us know what you're thinking, and that goes the same if you're watching on the replay. Now I am going to bring up one of my favourite people in the world, simply because he's a better guitar player than me. Dan. I had to think of something there, Dan. That's a bit not very good, is it? Just because. You're a great guy. Because I thought of the guitar playing, but I don't like you just because of your guitar. You were playing bass earlier when we were doing our little warm-up chat, and I was shuffling around doing things, and you had the bass out and you were slapping away, and I thought, I fucking hate this guy. He's good at everything. Oh, sorry, I swore already. Sorry, children. Damn it. But yeah, you were slapping away. Can you just grab your bass now, Dan? Just grab it. Go on. Get it out for the kids.
You know,
It's not plugged in. Just do a little. Just give us a little. Do a little bit of a Will Smith and give us some slap action there. Hey. Okay?
It sounds terrible without an
It was sounding better earlier on, I have to say. But anyway,
it's funny. I'm a guitar player, but I've actually been playing bass for a long time, and I don't have hand strength to call myself a bass player. So if I was going to drop into a gig or something, but I play well enough that I actually write a lot of songs on the bass guitar, even though guitar is my main instrument, because I'm rhythmically oriented. If I get a great riff and it comes from a bass guitar, I find my songs are just the better for it. And then I work on the harmonies and the chords later on. But that structure, that foundation, I always build from the bottom up. So having some ability on the bass guitar really helps my songwriting.
Do you know, when I grew up in the UK, because I was born in Australia, just for people, quick life history, born in Australia, moved to the UK when I was a kid. I lived in a place at a time where one of the most famous bass players ever came from. And I'm not going to say I met him. I was in his presence a couple of times. So I'm just going to let people in the chat try and guess who that person's name was. We'll see if they can guess correctly by the end of the show. Talking about great people, and just to answer Mimo Japan quickly, no, I don't have two concurrent mics going on. I'm not sure why you're asking that, but anyway, it's probably a little delay or something. But Dan, Doug says, could you turn your mic up a little bit? Anyway, talking about great people, from places I love. Here's a man. Oh, sorry, different show. Now here he is, Mr. Ricky T. Brown. There you go. Ricky, is it one word, Ricky T? Now you've typed in your name before you come on the show. Is it one word? Look at this, Ricky T. Ricky T.
I think it depends on whether I remember to join them up or not.
Is it because you're a bit old and rickety? Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I am. Yeah. I'm in touching distance of you two, so I guess I must be.
Okay, we'll make sure we don't talk about your wife then.
No. Don't do that, mate.
I've got some guesses coming in there. Phil Lynott wasn't Phil Lynott from Phil Lynott was a great bass player, one of my favourite people. Thin Lizzy, but he was from Ireland, I believe, or did 29. Yes. So close but no cigar. I've never lived in Ireland, but I have lived on an island. Oh, okay, you should be able to figure that out. So, Ricky, how have you been?
That island.
How is the man who is the founder of the greatest Facebook group about home recording in the universe? Man. Yes. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm just enjoying the entertainment we've all had this week on the, the Will Smith incident. Yeah.
We had a little chat about that.
Yeah, some controversial views.
Yeah, we had a slightly different opinion on that one. Should we share it?
Yeah.
Oh, go on then. Let's do it. Let's be topical. They say be topical on YouTube. Yeah. Let's do it.
Now listen. I totally agree that any form of violence in a work environment is totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
Right, fine. Yeah. Okay. Let's get the PC stuff out of the way first, yeah? Now, in the moment, however, and what Chris Rock said, given that he knew the reason for Jada's hair, well, however it was, he knew what was behind it. And he still decided to go and throw that joke in there. And, humor is a funny thing, that it's often subjective. And given her circumstances, it was a bad call on Chris Rock's part. So you know what? when he gave him that sweet clap, oh gosh, I thought, you know what? You had that coming, mate. Now, in real life, if you do something like that, yes, you're going to get in trouble for it. I mean, you're not supposed to get away with that in truth, However, in the moment, I think it was a human response, and knowing how deep that joke went, he just reacted. You know what I mean? So I blame Chris Rock, not Will Smith.
All right. Okay. Look, I was going to respond to you and add to the controversy, but I feel a little bit more like we should do a sound check because a lot of people in the chat are saying, "Do you like the way I got out of that, Dan?" I just avoided controversy totally. So, look, all right, they're going to have to answer quick, guys, because we're going to get on with the show. But let's do a level check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Check 1, 2.
1, 2,
Give us,
1, 2, 1, 2.
Give us an idea. Who's too loud? Who's too quiet?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, you're a bit quiet, aren't you, Ricky?
Hello.
All right. I haven't adjusted anything about my levels, I don't think, since last time, but I'm cranked, am I? I'm cranked, Darren. Okay. Am I really loud? Do I sound loud to you guys?
Quite loud, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's
Ricky
try and adjust that.
sounds quiet to me. How do I sound to you guys?
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just say.
I think we're having a bandwidth issue because I'm watching the stream on another computer and I'm very pixelated.
Oh, really?
But
okay. I'm seeing. Oh, you know what, Doug? I think you're quite right. I must have adjusted something. Am I sounding a bit better now? Am I sounding a bit better now, folks? Is it? I've gone down in level, haven't I? Is that better? Is that more palatable for you? Let me know. Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2. 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, dooby doo. Okay, I think I'll have to leave it there because I'm not getting the answers from the chat. So anyway, let's move on. We'll try and sort it out as we go along. We probably won't, but
this is
no change,
content.
Doug. I know it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing content. Getting your levels right. Anyway, so what we're going to do is, oh no, still a bit too loud. Oh my goodness! Hang on. How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is it too quiet? Hello? Oh, you can't hear me. You couldn't hear me then? You couldn't hear me then? Okay. All right. We'll survive. Let's move on to the first song. All right. Hopefully not too bad anyway. Still no change. I'm adjusting that gain thing. All right. I wonder if it's this one. Is it this one over here? Nothing changing. So strange. For me, it was going up and down. Anyway, let's move on. By the way, the chat's a little bit delayed, so all your answers come through to us like 10 seconds later, which does make this doubly confusing. Let's move on to the first song. Ricky, I'm going to allow you to actually read out the name of this piece of music. You know what that means, don't you?
Yeah.
So
Tongue twister.
Here we go. So it's actually someone who's in the chat at the moment. So his name, I didn't know how to pronounce this, but he's here almost every week, and I'll help you out here, Ricky. His name is Rocky. Now he's the producer of this piece of music, but he's not the performer. It's not his music. He's just simply a producer of it. Okay. Now, so we'll pop that up there. I'll just pop. So the actual player is a chap called Leo, and we have Rock as well, who is in the chat. Now, just going through this, he sent me an email about it. He says the song is not mine. It's from my friend Leo. The tune's name is, and Ricky's going to read it out for us now.
Amigable Descenso.
Oh, see, you're getting better at this, man. You're getting very, very good at this, aren't you?
I'm ready for your ass. Yeah.
He says it's a short instrumental. It's a short instrumental. We have instrumentals on this show, and I feel like Dan's so qualified to listen to instrumentals. He's an instrumental fella himself. He's instrumental in most of his tunes, and this is a part of an old album of tunes which never got recorded. We plan to release maybe 7 or 8 songs by the end of the year, and make some live performances as well. My friend Leo plays guitar, and I do all the rest: recording, programming, drums, bass, orchestration, synths, mixing, and pseudo mixing. All is done in Cakewalk with free plugins, zero budget project. Obviously it's done in our spare time. We're amateur hobbyists. We have cheesy headphones and hi-fi speakers, and no audio interface, as well, they don't have one compatible with 64-bit system. So, done on a shoestring. Let's have a listen to this again. Ricky, what did you say it was called again, this track?
Amigable Descenso.
Okay, yeah, good. Let's have a listen.
Gotcha.
Okay, there we go. I bet my sound is better now. Maybe not to you two guys, but let me know in the chat if it's better, because I had my default webcam mic switched on before we were here, and all the adjustments I was making to this in my mixer were not making any difference. I think Pete John solved that problem for me in the chat there. Thank you, Pete. Let me know if everything's good. Yeah, I can see a couple of yeses there. Thank you, guys. So, yes, remember, Mike, to check your microphone settings before you start the live show. Moving on, I think I'm going to go to Dan first on this particular one. It was an instrumental, Dan. It was a little bit sort of guitar-based. Now, these guys are not under any instructions at all, but I know I just want to warn Rocky that Dan can get a bit brutal at times, so strap in. Here we go. So Dan, let's have your feedback on this particular track.
Well, I think well, first of all, it's a nice. I love guitar. Well, I love guitar. I like hearing real guitar in a track. I mean, we talk about my aversion to samples and things. I do program drums for some of my music just because I do things myself, so I don't have any problems with that. The biggest problem with this is the mix. It's flat. It's muddy. It sounds like there's a lot of great individual parts in there. I can hear some, maybe it's an acoustic in the background. It's sort of pan hard left. That main guitar melody is, sort of in the middle. And I hear some bits sort of creeping in and out on the right side there a little bit. But overall, the mix is really, really muddy. It sounds like there's a blanket that was thrown over the speaker because the top end is just flat. It needs a lot more air. What I would do, I think, with this mix is, because I think all the parts are there. Definitely think all the parts are there, but we need to sort of really identify placement for the instruments, get that bottom end working, top worker, I'm a bottom up worker, however you do it. There is no vocals in this one, so I'd recommend sort of looking at your rhythm tracks, get those drums and bass working nicely, and then start identifying and carving spaces for everything on top, because right now everything in the mid-range, everything on the top end is just sort of woven into one sound. There's panning going on, and that's great, but in fact, there's a little sort of those acoustic guitars in the background, but the main guitar in the middle is really, really muddy, and it's sort of getting mixed up with everything around it, like in the mid-range. And feels like there's no top end at all. I mean, this mix needs some air. So to summarize, I think there's some great bits going on there, but I think we need to look at a bottom-up mix, get the foundation working, and then start carving space and good stereo placement for all of the instruments. And I think they'll have a nice little piece there.
Interesting. I've got to say, just to be controversial, I disagree with a couple of things that Dan said there, but this is sometimes what this is all about. Not completely, but a little bit. But before I get my 2 cents in, I want to hear what Mr. Ricky T. Brown thought about it.
Yeah, what do I think about that? Well, I think Dan left his fork at home personally, but there we go. It was a very pleasant piece, but if we're looking at constructive criticism, what I would say was that the guitar riff, yes, there might have been mix issues, but I think it's more about arrangement for me. That there was not enough variation, seeing as the arrangement relied on the guitar to keep it moving. I mean, yes, there were a couple of cool changes as you went through it, but I suppose if you're going to look at it in terms of jazz, you've got your main theme, you improvise, and then you come back to, well, that's how they used to do it. You come back to what was the main motif for the song. And I didn't hear enough of that, because especially, listen, man, when you pick up the axe, people expectations go up straight away. You know what I mean?
True.
So
True.
at some point in the arrangement, I felt that they come on, show us what you got, man. Come on, show us your chops.
Okay.
I didn't hear anything that equated to that to show, the Israel level of musicianship. So I don't know if that was a choice or not, but it wasn't there, and I was expecting to hear it. So come on, we know the riff now. What are you going to do on top? So if I had any advice for him, I'd say, look, You've got a great basis of a piece there. There was nothing like really bad in there. It just needed a bit more, I think. So if you're going to revisit that mix, give us some more guitar, please. Yeah, you're giving us the basics.
Interesting.
Let's have a little bit of a solo. Yeah.
I know Rocky's here every week. He's gone a bit quiet at the moment. But
He's
Rocky,
devastated.
Sometimes it can be a bit confusing when you do get advice, because sometimes you'll get slightly different pieces of advice, and I'm going to be just a little bit different to both of my guests here. I'm questioning Dan's headphones at the moment. I'm not entirely sure that let's just bring us all equal. I'm not entirely sure that the high end of things was as missing as Dan's saying, in my opinion. Okay, so we're using different headphones. I was tempted to switch over to the Biodynamic 770 D770s there to test that theory out. But so before you take Dan's advice there, he may be right, but I would basically. I'm not convinced on that. I can see that it could take it a little bit more high end, but I didn't feel like it was as muffled as. But I did feel the elements of it were. So particularly, the kick was doing really, really nicely, but the snare to me just didn't have enough snap. There was not enough snap happening on that snare, so that had the feeling of, come on, I want to hear that cut through. And definitely the main guitar was a little bit muffled, stroke, distant sounding. It didn't feel mix-wise like it was it was obviously arrangement-wise the focus of the piece, but it didn't feel like it was kind of really there in the mix. Just a quick note on something more positive, and you may or may not have noticed, but the strings were lovely when they came in. I don't know what string library you're using, Rocky, but they were really. It was a really nice string sound. I really appreciated when it came in. Overall, I'm not feeling quite as negative as my two awful guests are being about this, but I do take that it needs some work. I do totally agree with Ricky though a little bit on that main melody guitar needed some more variation in it. However, I don't think you needed to show what a great axe hero you were. I think it's fine just to be melodic and simple. Personally, I don't think you. I know Ricky used the phrase to show us your chops. Show us your chops.
Oh, show us your chops. Yeah.
Yes.
A little bit, just a little bit, because it was a
maybe
laid back piece, wasn't it?
Yeah. I just think it could have just had some different motifs in there rather than do anything especially kind of outlandish, but that's my opinion. You'll get three different opinions, unfortunately, some of them, but hopefully some of that will steer you in not so much that any of us are really right, but it might give you some ideas to try out, Rocky, and you can just judge for yourself. So take Dan's idea, maybe it's a little bit more of a mastering idea to lift the high end as a whole, but you can do it during the mix if you can identify several key instruments which are lacking on the high. Give it a try. You know, this is what this is all about. This is a great thing about DAWs and working with digital audio, is it's so easy to change things and have a go. Okay, so take Ricky's advice, of course, and maybe try and get your chops out, whatever that means. We don't know what he means by that.
I didn't say get his chopper out. I know where you're going with this. I didn't say that.
Hey Ricky, talking about headphones, because Dan had his has got his Biodynamics, one of my favorite headphones. I like them now, but of course I've got my actual favorite headphones on, the Austrian Audio, I can't remember what they're called, 65 open back headphones. Ricky, you've got the 15s, am I right in saying?
Yes, the 15s, yeah.
You got the 15s.
They're really good. Really good.
I'm
all
just
round.
Going to go down
headphones.
below here. I'm not doing anything awful to Dan or Ricky, but I wanted to show. I've just got this Austrian Audio. This I haven't tried it yet. So I love small diaphragm condenser microphones. I don't know. There's something about them. I just like using them. I like that little sizzle you can have from them sometimes, and that clarity you can have. That's nice. And as I say, these are my favourite headphones, but they're open back, so they're not great for tracking. But they've released some closed back ones of these, which I haven't even taken out of the box yet. They're still in the box. I'm very, very excited to try these out. I will try them. But Ricky,
Yes, sir. Yes, dude.
did you enjoy that?
Yeah,
I'm-
man. it was good.
I've got the 15s in a box here,
Hey,
just the ones you've got on. So
yeah,
what I'm
you
going
find
to
that
do?
they're okay.
No, I haven't
They're
taken them out of the
okay.
box yet. I haven't taken them out. Should we
Okay.
take them out of the box?
Take them
I've
out of
got,
the box. Yeah.
Look, for people, if you do happen to get some Austrian audio headphones, they do give you some red Velcro strip, which it shouldn't impress you. That shouldn't impress you on paper, but it is really impressive when you get it. You go, oh, look, I've got this. Well, I could use it as a
Sent a
cable
shiver down my
tie.
spine.
I know, it's so
Oh.
nice, isn't it? So nice. I'm just going to chuck it behind me like that. And how does the box open? It opens. I literally have never opened this box before. It's got a free warranty extension in there. Hopefully I won't be needing that. It's signed by someone. I can't see in this light whether that's a printed signature or a real signature done with biro. But these were obviously inspected by someone called. Okay, so that's the name of that person. Get a lovely bag, which I never ever use. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate the gesture with the headphone bags, but I just never use them. And there's the actual headphones. Yeah, I'm going to try and pull them out. And these are the very ones that Ricky T. Brown. You love them, don't you, Ricky?
I think they're great all-round headphones. Yeah.
And they're nicely packaged always. The build quality is amazing. How much are these, Ricky? I haven't looked it up.
I think those 100 and about a ton, around the 110 quid, something like that.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't know what they sound like yet, but in terms of feel in the hand, I'm going to say I'm not being sponsored, by the way. These would be the best $100, like in terms of build quality headphones that I've ever had my hands on. Right away, I can say that just by the feel of them. Right away there. So I was going to say during the next song I'll change over to your headphones, but it's a little bit rude, isn't it? Because I wouldn't be listening to the song. So maybe I'll just try and find. I wonder if they use the same cable. Hang on.
I think they do.
Let me try. I can't hear anything anyone's saying, by the way. This is so professional, isn't it? No. Hang on.
We're charting new ground with this live stream.
I can't get Oh, I can hear you all again now. No, it doesn't use the same cable. That's no. Well, I couldn't get it in there. Anyway, I tried to ram it on home, but it just wouldn't go in.
Story of your life.
She said.
Oh my god, I can't feel like we're wasting 36 people's time.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, I'm going to get the cable in there. I'm going to get it in there. And while I'm sort of fiddling around with this, I just want to have a word about, not from, but about the sponsor of the show. If you do follow the link in the description down below, it's going to take you to a special page on Distrokid with this yellow banner at the top. That banner is letting you know that you're going to get a further 7% discount off your first year if you sign up here. And let's face it, it's already very cheap. If we scroll down, we can see that a year's membership is $19.99 per year for an unlimited number of albums and songs. And so long as it's your own music, there are no extra charges, and you get to keep all of the royalties from the various platforms. Platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Pandora, Amazon, Instagram, Tidal, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and more. Notice the change? I'm all hooked up. Up. There's only one odd man out here.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's a
Austrian
shame it
audio.
ain't here.
That's right. Austrian audio. Something's going a bit weird. Oh, no. Okay.
The two of you, your skills are going to be put to the test now. There's no excuse because you're hearing the same thing.
We're hearing exactly the same mix. I will say that for $100 right away, these are fantastic headphones. Really, wow. This is like a big wow moment. And I do love Biodynamic Dan and their headphones. I've still got to compare their new Pro ones to the old.
To be honest, I actually don't like mixing on these. I actually find them too boomy. I mix on my monitors, but when I used to, my new studio, I have a lot more separation from the rest of the house, so I almost never need headphones. But I always found these very boomy, and I never got good mix results mixing on these. I know people rave about them, but they're not good mixing headphones, in my opinion.
Tell you what, there's hundreds of different headphones out there, and thousands of different people say that all of them are the best headphones they've ever used for their mix. You know, so jury's always out on headphones. You find what you think is best for you, I think, at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm enjoying these. I'm going to use them for the rest of the show. I haven't even peeled the little bits of plastic off. Shall I just do that? I don't know if you can really see it. Let's get the camera up there. Just so look. Oh, there we go.
A piece of dead skin. Come on.
Look at that. I'll save the other side for later.
Vince is getting a little taste about our private conversations.
Okay, let's move on. We haven't got too much to say about the second song, which is coming up now. I do want to make sure I introduce it properly because there's a number of people performing on this, but in the email I didn't get a name for the group, a group name. I've just got them as individuals. So I kind of apologise a little bit in advance because on the little video clip I've made, I've only included one of their names. I couldn't get them all to fit in. But for the little caption, they're quite difficult to pronounce. So I'll have Dan read them out. So the people involved in this are coming up on the screen now, Dan.
Johnny Banks, Angie Nero, and Retro Ron getting ready to rise up.
That's how you do it, Ricky. Why do you struggle with names so much? Dan was very fluent there, very fluent, I felt, with some foreign sounding names.
Felt like I've known them all for years.
I know.
Discrimination, I call that. Yeah.
It's amazing what an education can do for someone, isn't it, Dan? Anyway, moving on. Johnny Banks was the one who sent this in. He said, "Hi Mike, I hope you can consider using this track for your show." Angie Nero on vocals. Let's just pull those names up again here. Angie Nero on vocals. Retro Ron on bass. Retro Ron, what a great name. And myself, Johnny Banks, on guitars, keys, and harmonica, and also the mixing and production. Okay, so this is a little longer track than I normally play, but you know, I just recommend relax and kind of enjoy it if you can. Let's have a listen.
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of a sort of a head bob from me. I saw a little bit of a head bob to my left from Ricky,
Yes.
but I wasn't seeing too much bobbing from Canada. I wasn't seeing an awful lot of bobbing from Canada. It intrigues me a little bit. I don't know whether he's worried his head will fall off or something. But Dan, I don't know why I've got a feeling you might be saying something controversial again here. I could be wrong. What was your feeling here, man?
I actually liked it. I was getting
okay.
into it, and I
you're not a
wanted to.
bobber.
And I was actually something I started doing. I think in our last live stream is I was actually taking notes. So I was listening.
Okay. Okay.
So
stand
I wanted to I wanted to give the song its due, because first impression out of the gate was like, I don't have much to say. So then I wanted to listen a little bit harder and be as constructive as possible. So I saw Ricky kind of dancing there. So whatever he has left, don't worry about that. So so if you've come to me first, then I will tell you what I have to say about it. So I love the track. I think it's got a great vibe overall, a lot of fun. That's the most important thing. First impressions. We can get in the weeds and nitpick about production and stuff like that, but I think it's important for them, at least from my perspective, which really means nothing. First impression was a really great track. Just kind of a nice vibe to it. Kick back, enjoy it. I was enjoying it right off the top. That's why I had to force myself to listen to it and see if I can find some constructive bits to share. And I have a few. Now, I'm going to say this because we've been talking about headphones, and I'm critical of these headphones because they tend to be boomy and they will cloud my judgment in the bottom end. So I'm going to put a big asterisk beside what I'm saying. More of a to look at, not there's something wrong. I'll make that clear. I love the warmth of the bass guitar. I mean, that's driving this track, and in this kind of genre, that has to be there. And I just love the feeling. I was kick was getting lost for me. I don't know, again, maybe it's a little too boomy and it's drowning it out in my headphones, plus the live stream, the quality's probably dipped down a bit. But maybe to check if there's a way to bring some snap from the kick drum. Just that little sort of snap. Sometimes I'll double the kick drum and I'll EQ it to like almost a click. And then I'll blend it back in just so we can feel like a snap of that kick drum. Again, just something to look at, not necessarily wrong. Overall, the drums felt a little bit distant to me at times. You mentioned in the last track, snare drum. It was a big challenge I had when I was first mixing. Is I have a drummer friend who kept telling me, snare drum. Want to feel that real whack of that snare drum. I wasn't feeling that. So I would love to feel the drums a little bit more present, a bit more snare, and just get that whack out of that snare. I think it would really help that groove and just make it feel even tighter. And so general presence overall, I think, for the drums. And then talk about guitars, and I'll leave it there because there's other things to talk about, and I'm going to leave at least one thing for Ricky to talk about. I felt the rhythm guitars, that standard reggae, 2-4 rhythm beat.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel that real twang and snap of that guitar.
Oh, you wanted a bit more snap in there? Okay. Yeah.
I definitely need it more. And then when that came in, it just, it slapped.
But let's be clear. Let's be clear about this. You didn't want him to get his chops out. Okay, you didn't. There was no chops that were required.
No chops.
Right, okay. No chops.
Unless he's hungry, and that's what's on the dinner on the menu for dinner. But I would just love to feel a little more brightness, a little more of that snap from the guitars to act that real accent there. And that guitar solo, I love. In reggae music, when they introduce sort of rock flavors, it works really, really well. It was just like, bam, it slapped me in the face. The balance was off compared to everything else. So, but other than that, loved the song. Really great job. And I think we're in tweak mode, in my opinion.
Yes.
And again, take everything I said with a grain of salt, because my headphones, at least judging the bottom end, is not super accurate. So there you go.
I think it was good feedback, Dan. I liked it. It was really useful. Got to agree. You must be right, because I agree with you. So. Hey, Ricky, what have you got to say? You were really enjoying this by the looks of it. Did I misread
No,
you?
listen, man. You're talking about my cultural background and heritage. So listen, mate. I know what that's supposed to sound like, and it did. It was completely authentic reggae.
It's very interesting that you say this now. I'm really glad that you've introduced your little critique like this, because some of the people in the chat, I don't remember who it was, sorry, I did put them up, felt that well, the main thing was that the vocals were too distant, okay? Now,
Yeah,
I
I
was
was going to
thinking
come
that
on
might
to
have
that.
been a stylistic choice. What do you think, given that you're a connoisseur of the genre?
Okay, I mean, if I were mixing this track, I would have pushed the vocals a bit more forward. They were a little bit too much in the background because it kind of reminded me of it was kind of a mashup with it's like Macy Gray and Aswad.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
it's the vocal style. It wasn't typically a reggae style. It reminded me of the way that Macy Gray sings, and if
Had a
you
little
put
bit
that
of a
on reggae,
raspiness to it, didn't it? Just a
yeah.
little bit of raspy in there, which was good.
Yeah, I think the upper mids in the vocals could have been a little bit more forward, but as far as the vibe goes and the balance of instruments, they nailed it. It was right on the money. That's why. Now you never seen me dance on here before, yeah, but this nailed it. It nailed it. It was exactly what it was meant to be, and I understand some of the responses have been, well, if you were going to assess it in the same way that you would a typically rock track, you might say certain things, but I didn't hear that in this when I listened to it. And it's not because it's reggae, because the truth is, I'm not really a huge reggae fan, yeah. But what this trio did, they captured the sound of the mid to late 70s reggae.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's what I
Yes.
grew up with. So they
Yes.
got it right on. So
Yeah.
it's like what we used
Particularly,
to
and I
call.
don't know if they are from the UK, but from my limited knowledge, but it reminded me of in the late 70s and early 80s when I was in the UK, the kind
Yeah,
of UK produced reggae that I would hear.
yeah. That's why I
You know.
said Aswad, because they're
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
UK band,
Mm,
and
mm, mm.
the groove they were using, they used kind of what we used to call a stepper's groove,
Mm, mm,
and it was on the money. It was exactly that,
mm, mm,
So, of course, I appreciate, I do look at the comments and see what people's reactions are to it.
mm.
But from an authenticity point of view, I think, yeah, they got it absolutely right. Vocals,
Bob Lynn in
a
the
little
comments
bit higher.
has got this to say. For me, the melody is very repetitive in the A section. If vocal was present, the A would not be so monotonous. Also, the lead guitar tone could have been more present. What say you to that? You don't agree with that, Ricky?
No, I don't agree with that.
Mm.
If you know anything about reggae, you know what the vocal melodic patterns are for that kind of music, and that is just what you heard there is typical. I
Mm.
say to those who may not have appreciated that, well, okay, you might, if you were viewing it differently, you might say, well, it was a bit repetitive, but
Well,
the
that sort of, and I'll bring everyone up, but that's what interests me because we've listened to two songs now that arguably were both kind of equally as repetitive as each other. I feel like we gave the first song a bit more of a hard time with the lack of theme or motif change. I'm going to step out here and be a little bit devil's advocate, but say what I think. I don't know that this necessarily changed the motif any more than the first track did.
Yeah, but they're not the same thing. So,
Right.
how can you judge them on the same level? They're completely different types of music. And with
Right.
reggae,
Okay.
it's all about the groove.
Right.
So if you see people moving to it, it's about the groove.
Right.
So that
I agree with
it's
you.
apples and pears for me. Those two
Mm.
tracks.
Well, that begs a good question, and I'll throw it out to the chat here and to you guys, because what Ricky's saying is that what he get now, this is impression without talking to the artist. If they were attempting to go for a traditional reggae vibe, the obvious simple answer would be, well, sure it is, because that's what it sounds like. But I'm going to remind you guys about a track we reviewed in the previous episode where it had a very 60s vibe. Now,
yeah.
a lot of a lot of tones and sounds and styles that we shoot for are trying to emulate at times what were restrictions of the time period, which is why a song that was recorded and mixed in the 60s sounds like a 60s song. It was a reminiscent of the time, not from just a stylistic point of view, but also a limit technology. So if we're looking to go for something, do we want to sort of take that sound and bring it into a modern era and make it sound more modern? We want to copy things that sounded the way they did because of limitations of the time, and or styles of the time. I mean, to me, a mix is like, for example, I love progressive rock and classic rock and guitar tones from the 70s. If you take those metal monsters of today, they laugh at those tones because they're using super high gain amplifiers that are so thick and so dirty. They don't get anything out of those guitar sounds that I think are massive and big. It sounds puny to them. So, mixing music today, and like harking back to a previous time, I do it. I'm rooted in 70s myself, but I'm conscious about trying to bring that music forward to make it listenable for a more modern audience, because audiences today are listening to music with a different set of ears and a different ref point. So the question is, should we emulate those sounds, or should we try to bring those sounds forward? There's no right or wrong answer here, but I'm curious.
Man, there's such a big question. Because this is very similar to the chat that was happening before we started the show, where one of our regular viewers, I think his name is Darren, was discussing this track that he recorded many years ago, and he's trying to sort of do it again, and he feels like I think he said in the comment he's just stuck in the 80s. And Dan, I just personally feel, go with your heart. If you want to make music that sounds exactly like the 80s, do it. Hell, whatever. It's probably going to sound like a revival anyway. But there is a great opportunity to take something like, as you say, Dan, the 60s sounds and kind of pay homage to that sound, but then bring it a little bit up to date, in my opinion anyway. What say you, Mr.
Actually, sorry, Mike, I think that's what they did with this, because, I said that it sounded like a mashup of a Macy Gray and Aswad. And if, because I listened to it whilst moving around, I was listening intently, and they were using like modern sounds in there as well. Right. So I would describe it as a modern take on a dub track, because it had all the constituents of what used to be called dub, and they've I feel that they've represented it in their own way, so we can hear where they've obviously the groove. Reggae is reggae, as just the same as rock is rock, but they brought other elements to the table, I think. So I'm not sure that I would necessarily judge this one on the basis of, well, they're trying to recreate something that's already been done. They've actually brought something more to it.
I think when evaluating mixes, then there is something to be said for context in a way, isn't there? In that, at least in the sense of what is the intention of the artist here. Now, whether people enjoy that. Of course, ultimately, when it goes out in the world and it's played on the radio, on Spotify, people don't have that context. But from our perspective, I think from judging, are they reaching the goals of the mix as per their intentions? Then I think the context is interesting. I do bring that up because I think it's important in terms of the third song that we're going to listen to. But of course, before that, we're going to find out a little bit more about our sponsors above Dan the Lonely Rocker's head. Just stick your finger in the air for us, Dan. There we go. Distrokid. Love working with Distrokid. I love their products. Like, it's very, very easy to release your music through them, as we'll see now. If you want to release your music via Distrokid, there's just a couple of things you need. First of all, the music itself. Here's mine in my DAW Cakewalk, and I'm exporting it to an uncompressed WAV file for best results. Now, the other thing you'll need is some artwork. I just grabbed an old photo which I'd taken on the beach, chucked on some text here, and that's what I call art. Then I went over to Distrokid, and I just have to fill in this extra easy form. It's a no-brainer form. You get helped all the way through with little hints complaints and things, you can't really do anything wrong. You just go ahead and confirm a few things about your music, and then you just have to actually upload the artwork and the song itself, and Distrokid takes care of the rest. It's going to send it out to all of the best platforms so that people can hear and buy your music. Oh yes, just to hark back to an earlier conversation, which we didn't really have. But yes, I grew up mainly in a place called the Isle of Wight. From 9 years old till I was 20, I lived on the Isle of Wight. And of course, one of the most famous people to come from the Isle of Wight, apart from, who else came from the Isle of Wight? I can't remember. The Queen Victoria, she lived on the Isle of Wight. But anyway, it was Mark King from Level 42, of course. He was like just legendary in that little place that I came from. Yeah. Yes, and he was amazing. He took some 70s kind of funk bass playing, and then he kind of lifted it up to a whole new level, put it on steroids really, and he was a great player. And a nice fella from, I would hear about musicians locally working with him. He had a little show, nice enough fella. And great stuff. How amazing just to create your own kind of complete sound and technique and everything on an instrument. I think that's
sorry, Mike. I have to disagree with that one.
Go on, then.
No, I'm not having that. I'm not having that. Listen, Mark King is a great bass player, but even though his surname might be King, he is not King. Yeah, okay. You've got cats that have been doing it for longer than he.
I know. I didn't mean to imply he completely, created the idea of slapping a bass guitar. I'm not suggesting that. I just felt that from anything else I'd heard that he just stepped it up to a different level. But
from a British perspective, yes. He is noteworthy, absolutely, and I wouldn't take that from him. But you can't talk about being kings of bass without talking about Marcus Miller. Marcus Miller is the god, and Victor Wooten is the other god as far as bass players. So let me have that rant. Yeah, it's not Mark King.
Don't get me started about bass players. I'm gonna
don't get Dan started. So anyway, we did talk about context before the little break there, and look, I don't like to sort of prime you guys before you listen to the music, but I do think a little bit of perspective is important, because we are so often, not just us, but I've noticed it with many other music production YouTubers, that we look at every piece of music through the lens of a contemporary piece of 3.5 minute, music, to be played on the radio. But of course, there's incredible genres of music which are nothing like that. Movie music, computer game music, TV ad music, jingles. I mean, it's all relevant, isn't it? So I do want to put that out there for this next piece. This is from a gentleman, and again, it's really difficult to read out, so I'll read it out this time. His name is Dylan K. The piece is called Sunday. Dylan K. Sunday. It's fluent in all languages myself. Anyway, he says to me in the email, I could use your opinion. I thought this song I wrote would be great for learning MIDI programming. Dan's already pissed off about the song. MIDI programming arrangement to step up my game as a composer producer. Although this style of music is outdated, I programmed all of the drums, bass. Look at Dan's face. Look. You need a sedative. I programmed all the drums, bass, orchestral strings, and keys myself through this process. Although this song has not been quantized, little tick from Dan there, mixed down or mastered or even finished yet, please tell me what you think. Well, careful what you wish for, Dylan, I guess.
Insert canned answer here.
Anyway, let's see who's bobbing their head during this one, I guess. So, yeah, again, as I say, this is from Dylan K. It's called Sunday. Let's have a listen to it now. Okay, obviously an unfinished piece of music. I didn't listen to the end of that when I listened
MIDI
to it
drum
earlier.
solo.
So there you go. I'm going to start this off for a change. I feel compelled to start this off. I'm going to go full screen. Sorry, guys. No, wrong person. There we go. I'm going to look down the barrel of the camera here. I'm speaking to everyone, and I'm speaking to myself as well. I'm speaking to Dan. I'm speaking to Ricky. When you're writing your music, this is going to be one of the toughest questions you need to ask yourself. You really need to try hard to sit back and listen to this and say, would I be holding myself as a listener throughout this whole piece of music? I think we've heard two songs. I'm not going to say three. I've heard two because I think context is important. I think we've heard two songs on today's show, which kind of tests that a little bit, if I'm honest with you. Honestly, I'm sure people could listen to some of my 5-minute pieces and have a thing or two to say about whether I should have repeated that third and fourth verse or not. So we can all be guilty of it. It's a really tough question that you must ask yourself, because I see a little bit of, my opinion is that when you go to finish off this piece of music, you need some more variation in it again. More variation, folks, to keep people interested. That's my opinion anyway. What do you say, Ricky?
Generally, yes. I subscribe to that. It's great when you find a nice riff or a nice groove, and there is a temptation to overuse it. But you've got to keep it in mind that you need to keep your arrangement moving so that you add more interest as you go along. So you're not leaving the listener believing that the last 8 bars were the same as the first. You really need to try and avoid that. So that's where your arrangement skills comes into it, So I for me, if I did something like that, it would feel unfinished.
I think it is unfinished by the artist's own admission, to be honest with you. But yeah.
The drums, I thought it was interesting. I mean, up until the end bit, you had me with it. I thought it was an interesting experiment in, not quantizing the life out of, a riff or a drum pattern, but because of the tempo, it was kind of evident that when the timings weren't quite right, you definitely heard it. And especially the last part where you're showcasing a drum solo, and I'm thinking, mate, you got to do more than that. So you got to think how a drummer plays, so you should be hearing, for that kind of groove and tempo, you should have been hearing flams and that kind of thing. And mini rolls, like rolling the snare kind of thing to like liven it up a bit. But it was very, very, very basic, and that gave it away as being being programmed rather than actually being played.
Okay. Well, the most important opinion about a piece of music like this, of course, comes from Canada, from the lonely rocker himself. Do you ever ask yourself, Ricky? Do you think, I wonder why he's lonely? And then sometimes you go, I know why he's lonely.
Listen, man, you can't ask me a question like that. That's my buddy. I love him, man. You can't say that.
Sorry, Dan. I didn't mean that at all.
In trying to create some sort of, brand strength or brand power for yourself, you got to create a little sympathy for people watching. You know what I mean? It's not all, do all these other narrow. I've never seen anyone succeed that way. So I'm not sure what to add to this. I mean, this felt like an idea.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I know we joke about, my aversion for MIDI. Listen, my name that I use for my channel, Lonely Rocker, is built on the idea that you can do it yourself. I'm not actually that lonely. I love making music alone, and I I'll play bass, I'll play guitar, I'll noodle on the keys a little bit. I do play drums, but I'm not nearly as good as I need to be for the type of music I play. So I will use, Logic Drummer, and I have a customization method that I use to make it my own, as opposed to just using existing samples. So I'm not against that. I think these are all great tools for those of us who are sitting at home and are trying to create our own music. And that's kind of what I hear. Like the guitar riff in the opening was very reminiscent thing that I would do. Like us guitar players know there's a trick where you sort of play a chord and you keep the top end notes the same.
Yes,
and you move the bass notes
that sort
around.
of drone sound. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I get that. I know you hate when I talk about Rush, but Alex Lifeson was the king of doing it, right? So I listen for little things like that, and I think there's some great ideas in there. But I think this is an idea. I can't really judge it on a mix. It sounds like there's work to be done there. The drums, I don't know what the drum process was. Like, I know there's a lot of drum packs out there. I know like Easy Drummer is a popular one, where those drums are already pre-processed. So if you just leave them alone, they're going to sound pretty decent. Now, are you actually just things, or are you trying to learn to mix drums? It could be a bit of a crutch. So there's a bit stuff in there, some unknowns in there that I can't really say specifically. So it sounds like an idea to me, and I keep on trucking, push it, add some variation. It was a little monotonous up top. I'd love to hear some more harmony and melody. And then, yeah, that little drum thing at the end, whether that was intentional or the song's not finished, I'm not really sure. But if you are programming drums, we don't need drum solo. You're not pressing. Right. And I don't know if that was in.
No, I don't know. As I say, I didn't actually listen to the whole track before I went, yeah, sure, I'll have that on the show. So I didn't know that there was going to be this. I felt to me like perhaps it just wasn't finished. And in fairness, as I say, Dylan definitely implied in the email to us that that it was an unfinished thing, a sort of a work in progress that he wanted feedback on. Generally, I'd want to say to Dylan, you're on the right track in terms of if you're programming for sort of MIDI. There was a lot of stuff in there was good. Dan brought up the guitar. I thought the guitar was actually a decent MIDI guitar happening there. Obviously used the instrument in the right way, authentically, as Dan was alluding to there, which helped it to sound realistic. It got me thinking, and this may be something for the chat, and it may be for people watching in the replay. I reckon this, we talked about, say, for example, the reggae piece earlier had so much groove to it, didn't it? And as Ricky said, it's all about the groove. I reckon that you could probably, if you're very skilled like Mimo Japan, you could probably MIDI program things and get a really good groove happening. If you've got a good feel for it and you pay attention to detail, I reckon you could do it. And I reckon Dylan's probably on the right track to becoming skilled enough as a MIDI player, stroke programmer to do that. But I do wonder if could a piece, say an instrumental piece, move me to tears if it was programmed? Is that possible? Could it? I mean, does anyone have an experience of that? In you can say in the chat now. You can say in the comments later. Has there ever been a piece that you've perhaps subsequently even found out that it was not real instruments, where it's really moved your heart, right? It's really moved you emotionally. I'm a little. Dan. I'm sorry, Ricky. What were you thinking about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, it's not really about whether it's been MIDI programmed or not. Shit, everything I do, pretty much all of it, yeah, apart from bass sometimes. And
but when I say move you to tears, Ricky, I don't mean, oh my God,
yeah,
this sounds awful.
I was just going to qualify that. I would say that yes, that's entirely possible because if you've written a great piece of music, it's if you do it really well, you get an emotional response to it. It doesn't really matter whether it's been programmed or not. It's about melodical structure.
Okay, well, I get that as a theory, but could you
timing.
think of, and you can bring this up next time you're on the show, Ricky, but
Yeah,
maybe you need time to think, but can you think of a specific piece of music which has actually done that? I get in theory it could be done, but I personally have to say I can't think of a piece of music which I knew was completely synthesized or virtual instruments, which move me
I
in
can't
that way.
think. I can't think of one off the top of my head, Mike. Is the
Mm.
honest answer to that one? But
Well, food for thought, then, isn't it? Food for
yeah,
thought. I think.
I'll find you one.
I'd like to. I'd like
Mm.
to. Honestly, I would. I think. Wow, that would be the ultimate achievement for me if you were like Dylan here, or Mimo Japan, perhaps, who's a person who's, really committed to getting good at programming virtual instruments. I don't know if I want to ask this question of Dan. Ricky, do you think I should or not?
Yeah, well, he needs to broaden his horizons.
Dan, I know,
Come on,
Dan,
mate.
that you've never heard a piece of music which was all fully programmed, which moved you. But do you think is it possible? Do you think it's possible?
Well, sure. Listen, I mean, what brings a person to tears when they listen to a piece of music? Now, that's kind of the first question. What is it?
Right.
To me, it stirs up emotion.
Yes.
Emotion is a human quality. Now, if we're talking about an instrumental piece, or are we talking about a MIDI programmed music with a real singer?
No.
Because
I think a singer could bring emotion to a completely programmed piece. No question. There's no doubt.
okay,
about
so
that.
and why? Because a human being is conveying real emotion.
That's right. So,
that is another human being. Okay,
mm.
so for me, and I create music without singing because I don't sing. I love vocal music. I just don't sing, and I don't want to do that to you guys. Okay, so I would have more singing in my music if I could do it myself. I will eventually collaborate with someone, but my whole thing about making yourself. So that being said, I'm very conscious about the things that I am using computer assistants like drums, but I want to put as much emotion into my parts because I think it's the human element that connects emotionally. Yeah, harmonically, melodically, we doesn't matter, but that intangible, that emotional connection with another human being, I think, me personally, there needs to be a human connection. And it comes down to the whole question about robots, robotics, AI. Do we want to connect with a computer or do we want to connect with a human being? Personally, my choice, I like, you guys are an exception, but I generally like people. No, you know what I mean? So, it's like, can I have a laugh with an AI program? No, I can't, because we connect emotionally. And for me personally, music is emotion. I don't care what style it is, genre. There's some human connection that I have to find before I feel that hair stands on my arms, or my heart flutters a little bit because I've connected emotionally with another human being. That's what music is for me.
Okay, interesting. Look, somebody in the comment did just bring this up, and it sort of made me think a little bit. Michael Katgaman, sorry, I can't pronounce names, but most orchestral pieces are bit. Look, it got me thinking that probably a lot of sort of instrumental orchestral pieces that we hear in movies or big epic TV shows probably are not real orchestras anymore. In fact, I know that a lot of them are not real orchestras anymore. And I do get moved by some of those pieces at times.
Yeah, of course.
Interesting.
By themselves or in context of the movie?
Well, Dan, you're a clever man. Oh, I'm torn now. Well, look, okay.
Personally, I don't care. I personally, I don't care whether it's been programmed or whether it's been played by a human being. You see, the thing is, a good musician knows how to access the emotional content of what they're creating. A good musician will know how to do that.
Right.
And even if the end production goal is to make it sound like a human is actually playing it, if you're a good enough musician, you'll understand what your instruments are doing and how they're doing it. Some may argue that, well, the technology makes it so easy for people to just create something. But if you're going to create something good and something that can emotionally move an individual, it's about your understanding of how music is played. If you're emulating a real instrument, if you know how that instrument is supposed to be played, you can make it sound authentic. Thus, therefore, the end result should equate to something that sounds brilliant and can move you. So it's not an issue for me about whether somebody actually played a real instrument or not. It's how they did it.
But Ricky, you're coming from people need to know that you're a player. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a proponent.
Let's qualify this because Ricky's wife may be watching the
you're
show. When we say you're a player, Ricky.
All right.
Oh
you're a
no.
player.
No, we're not going to see you on Tinder anytime soon. But you're a player. Now we have to. MIDI is MIDI, but getting your performances into MIDI are different for different players, producers, whatever you call yourself. Okay, I know you're a player. So when you're utilizing MIDI, you're using MIDI as a recording device.
Yes.
Okay, you got your hands on the keys and your emotion is going into the part, and you're using MIDI to capture the performance. It's other than someone with a pencil trying to get that. It's not the human.
It won't be musical if you try and paint your notes in. No, that's true.
So and I can differentiate the approach that MIDI is just a way to record something. It's how it gets in, right? So if you're performing it, but you're capturing it in MIDI, and then you're bringing in new samples to the performance, that's still a human performance going to the recording and of that piece. That's where the emotional connection is for me. I don't care how you.
But yeah, at the end of the day, we're intellectually talking about this, but it sort of reminds me about when people talk about, particularly when people get talking about jazz, for example. I mean, oh God, I'm gonna upset people now, but I'm just gonna say it. I know people. I've known many musicians, especially over the years, who grade a piece of music by how hard it is to play, how difficult it is to play.
Musos,
right, musos. And for me, I couldn't give a stuff if it's the easiest thing in the world to play, as long as it sounds great. I really don't care. Now, am I intellectually impressed? I'm going to say I'm a fan of Tommy Emmanuel, for example, but I'm mostly impressed by Tommy Emmanuel by his incredible skill level. I mean, he's a great guy, he's a great entertainer and all that stuff as well, and that. But some days I'd much rather listen to Mark Knopfler, to be honest with you, because because it's just, I don't know, there's so much feel. For me, anyway, we all have different ideas, but for me, when I listen to Knopfler play, there's just so much emotion in every single note. It's like even when he just plays one note and goes, whoa, just like B.B. King, for example, again, is another one where you go, arguably, if you study guitar long enough, you'll technically be able to do that, but no one plays it quite like B.B. King, in my opinion. So I don't care. I don't give a stuff. I don't give a stuff how hard it is to play. And I think maybe, Dan, that's where Ricky's coming from a little bit with this. He's saying, why would you care whether it was a real instrument or a virtual instrument that was being played, as long as you love the sound of the music?
Yeah.
Right.
If it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah, but I like instruments. That's why I do what I do.
That's a different thing. That's a different thing. The passion for, especially the guitars.
Like I'm gonna bring up a guy, and a lot of people may not know this, but I mean, classic progressive rock band of all time is Yes. Okay, Yes has been around since the 60s. They've had a myriad of players. Chris Squire, rest his soul, left us years ago. But they've had a couple of guitar players, and two extremely notable. Steve Howe, which was an original player, and in modern time of Yes was Trevor Rabin. Trevor Rabin was famous for coming into a very classic band late and then wrote Owner of a Lonely Heart. Okay, so he was a ferocious guitar player, but his recent work probably even the last 20 years has actually been as a composer for feature films. And I'm looking at his call it his film discography, whatever you call it, but big movies like Armageddon and Con Air, this ton. I mean, I don't want to go through this whole list, but he's a ferocious guitar player, like Speed Demon, but he's also an amazing vocalist. He has a great voice. He has an incredible knowledge of music, but when you listen to the composing he's done, it's absolutely brilliant. And I can actually listen to it outside of the movie because of the musicianship, the emotion, the musical knowledge, and the years of it touring, and everything that he experienced as a player is evident in those film scores. And it gives you everything. I'm sure there's lots of MIDI in there and lots of programming in there. There's great playing in there. There's emotion in there. There's musical knowledge that's just a wealth of knowledge that's just so impressive to listen to. it's inspiring. It pushes you to be better. And that's, I'm
But
with MIDI.
if you didn't know that about him, if you didn't know his backstory, because I know, Dan, you particularly are big on backstories. If you didn't know that backstory, are you still going to hear that? Honestly,
but me personally, I kind of listened for that in music. I actually listened. One of my best friends, we used to go to a concert, and he'd be like, "You're always picking it apart. Just enjoy it for what it is." And, well, it's an occupational hazard, but that's what I enjoy. Knowing that a guitar player sat in his room as a pimply faced kid and practiced 10 hours a day, and then became Steve Vai, brilliant. Evident in what you do, because and I teach my kid that it's about effort. There's too many shortcuts today, and I'm not slagging MIDI. I'm not slagging sound.
No.
I think you should be good at what you do. No, listen, I know Mimo Japan, he's really working that angle, and he's put out some really good music, and I agree. Because he's focusing on being really good at doing that, right? As opposed to using it as a crutch. Because there's too many musicians today who are saying calling themselves musicians that are relying on the crutch. I don't care. It's 2022, where we losing track of the years. That's the reality of music today, and it's brought music. It's made music accessible, or music creation accessible for more people. That's amazing, But don't use it as a crutch. Use it as an opportunity to create and experiment. You know what? In the 1960s, that studio time was really expensive. And you got to admire those bands that were writing these epic songs and the experimentation at $2,000 a day, or whatever it costs to be in the studio. With your little laptop, you should be able to write the most epic piece of music today at no cost other than your time, right?
Can I mention something on that, which is just for anyone, and I know this is not the coolest artist to mention, whatever, I don't give a stuff. You talk about the 1950s, because if you remember the Everly Brothers, they apparently, on some of their biggest hits, would go into the studio and get it on the first or second take. That was it, they were done. And I was watching some documentary, and they were saying how valuable that was back in those days, because tape and studio time was so expensive. So the fact that people could go in and kind of do their shit on the spot and be good at it. And Mark, I'll just say, if you ever get to see probably one of their most famous hits, I don't know, what is it, Dream or something like that. But if you get to see an old video clip of it in black and white, it's really weird, because their vocal performances were so tight with each other in terms of the phrasing, etc. When you're watching the video, you can't tell which one of them is singing the lead and which one's the harmony. It's really impossible to say. They're just so spot on with each other. I do admire that, I have to say. It doesn't make any difference to the listening experience ultimately.
And that was effort before they got to the studio. They were ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
No, in contrast to what Dan just said, I feel I need to cut in here. Yeah. Now listen, Dan, you know that I love you, man, but I don't agree. I don't agree one iota with what you're just saying there, because you see, I am a player like you, but I think it's about one's ability to appreciate multiple music forms, and people will make music using different tools, and nothing says that you can only be a credible musician if you actually play one of the traditional instruments like guitar or bass or acoustic drums, whatever. Yeah, that is, for me, that's not the measure of your level of creativity or the quality of what you do. We live in an age where we have multiple ways of making music, and me personally, I embrace them all, even though I had the same musical start as you did, as in, you join a band, you learn an instrument, you learn how to work with others playing live. I did all that, but at the same time, what I think helps to keep me fresh is the ability to appreciate how other people make music, because they can also inspire you. If you just cut the music community down from, only at the point where somebody plays in the same way that you do, I think that there's so much music and appreciation that you're cutting yourself off from. And as a producer myself, I feel that I need to keep myself relevant by being aware and appreciating what other people do, even if it's different to me. Because you know what? I can always learn something new. And I'm not locked into one genre or one way of looking at how you make music, you know. And I think that's really helped me because not only can I do the rocky stuff, I mean, all right, then I don't play guitar like you, mate. Yeah, because you're a don, right? But as far as different genres are concerned, I feel that I can tap into all of them because one of the other things, I do cinematic stuff as well. I know you haven't heard it yet, Mike, but I do.
I know. I
Yeah.
haven't listened. I haven't heard any
And
of your music yet. You could be rubbish at music for all I know.
I could be. I could be. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So whatever genre it is, I open myself to it so I can hear what makes it work. Why is that popular? Why do people like it on a musical level? You know, so I don't feel that I can afford to take the position of, well, you know, it's only valid if they've done A, B, C, and D. That's not what it's about. It's
All right,
about
I'm gonna
appreciating
cut.
something
I'm gonna
because it's
cut in
good.
here as the host of the show. I'm just gonna
Sorry.
go to some comments. No, that's fine. I like the to and fro. It's good. We don't always have to agree with each other. 7:15 music says creating electronic music. I'm a bit disappointed by this discussion. Comes over as, oh no, only if they play an instrument can you transfer emotions. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Dan is just expressing his opinion about what he likes about music. He's entitled to his opinion about
Of
what he
course he
likes
is, yeah.
about music and what moves him about music. And I also think Ricky's entitled to his opinion, which is a little bit more in line.
Can
with
I just interject a small
7:15?
bit?
Yeah.
Just one thing that Ricky said that I think he missed in what I said. If you remember
Okay,
earlier,
sir.
I said I don't care what your recording method is if you're recording MIDI.
Yeah.
When I say crutch, I'm talking
Yeah.
about people who are like reusing loops and samples and not actually learning how to create music. And again, it's a genre itself, and I don't mean to knock it.
Yes,
But
indeed.
pure musical, you know, you just said, actually, the same thing I said is understanding what works, what moves people.
Yeah, yeah.
And that comes from
right.
effort. That comes from practice. I referenced Mimo Japan. He likes to program stuff, and he's made it his art form.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
And he's learning how to do it through
So,
MIDI.
Dad, what are you saying? That if you're
So what he's saying is, if it's, I'll tell you what he's saying. I'll translate for you. He's saying,
practiced what they've done. Of course, they've practiced what they've done. To be good at anything, you have to practice it.
A lot of
Whatever
people that I see in our groups and in the home recording studio zone, on comments on YouTube channels that I reference, they're sitting there saying that, what's that drum monkey plugin? And look, I push a button and I got a loop. Look, it's done in 10 seconds. It's not about creating a loop in 10 seconds. There's a whole genre, there's a whole era of modern day producers who are using this Captain Tools setup where everything is automated. Drums are created for them. That to me is not music creation. That means you're a DJ putting things together.
There's maybe a bigger question here, and I want to interject. You guys have spoken a lot, and I kind of want to defend both of you in a way, because I feel a little bit in the middle, because in actual fact, let me help Dan out a little bit here, because what he's saying is if you do it well, you can achieve the goal of emotion and great music through MIDI programming. And look, that's true of playing, let's say, real instruments. If you play a guitar badly, it sounds bad. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And you generally, for most of us, we have to put some effort to make it sound better. And I think it's very, very true of programming. And even though we've got, I know, 17:15 music in here, I know he is a programmer. He loves that kind of music. He doesn't like people, he wants us to be a bit more open-minded, especially as older gentlemen. And I get that, but I'm sure even he agrees that if you program badly, then you'll get bad results. So it's just a bit, I think Dan's trying to say, if you put, don't always go the easy route. And this is something I'm at pains to talk about, because I do. People say to me, why do you have virtual guitars on the channel, Mike? You're a guitarist. And I say, because it's bloody fascinating, isn't it? Like people like Ample Sound, some of the native instruments guitars, they're really trying very, very hard to reproduce what is an incredibly difficult instrument to reproduce because of all of its nuances, right? And that fascinates me that they're trying so hard. And what I do see, because if you listen to guitar sounds on some synthesizers from about 10 years ago. They were bloody awful, really, really bad. And we've definitely progressed, haven't we, Dan, to some better sounding guitars than we had back then.
Yeah.
See, he's nodding his
Even
head.
amp modeling, things like that. I mean, it's
So
all
I'm
come,
just fascinated by that progress and where we're going to be in 10 years from now and in 20 years from now. And also, as Dan may agree, that maybe it's the input method which would really change things as well. Because honestly, the piano keyboard is one of the worst input methods to try and replicate a guitar. It just is.
Yes.
From a guitarist's perspective, it's not the right thing. But anyway, that's what we've got to work with. And I actually think, and we had that example in one of the pieces of music tonight, didn't we, Dan, where you were saying it was programmed, I think, the last piece of music. It was a nice guitar part. Sounded good. So it's an interesting topic. I'm going to say, I'll just go back to what Jade Starr had to say earlier on. She came from a very live music, rock to metal background. Used to hate electronic and MIDI music. These days I create more music with MIDI than guitar and music. Look, I think a lot of people would be in that boat because to afford to record, you're at home, we're all working within the constraints of, let's face it, a lot of the time, budget, space, all of those things. So as Dan says, he doesn't get a real drummer in every time, does he? He takes his best shot at programming drums to make them, I'm not going to say realistic, just to make them sound right for the song. Now, I'm going to say I'm sort of in the same boat as Jade a little bit here, but I'm a little bit in between. I feel that, and this is just for my music, I'm not talking about anyone else's music. I don't think I can talk about anyone else's music. For my music, I like it to have one totally human element in there, just one. I can have the drums, the bass, the piano, strings, everything virtual, but I feel personally with just that one acoustic guitar in there, it just sort of glues it all together and makes it feel much more human and fluid for me. I see Ricky's laughing there, but that's just the way it is for me. Of course,
I agree with you, buddy. I agree. We all use MIDI, or most of us use MIDI extensively in what we're doing. But for me, that's not the, how you input it is not the demarcation of whether something is emotionally valid or not. It's about the ideas of the composer. That's where the nub of it comes from.
Yep. Now listen, I think we're going to have to draw this to a close. As someone said earlier here, the YouTube waffle algorithm just blew up. I like that comment. I've just got a very important statement to make before I leave the end of the show to you two, because I did say that I would sort of drop bombs on you, but I've got a very important statement to make to Susie if she's either watching in bed where she is now or she watches the replay. Darling, these two are players. They both said they're players. I'm not a player, okay? Just so you know, I'm not a player. Now, dropping bombs. We've got a slapper on the left of me. Anyway, so I'm going to drop bombs on you, and what I'm going to do, this may become a regular part of the show for my guests, and I'm going to just throw it out to Ricky first of all. Let's make him full screen. I'm not quite sure how to do that. I'll figure it out. All right, there you go.
Yeah, go
Ricky,
on.
we're going to leave our audience with some mixing tips, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to, you only have to do a short answer. This is going to be off the top of Ricky's head, folks. He's under pressure. I want you to give a quick, or maybe your number one tip, maybe number 2 or 3 tip to do with EQ. Go.
EQ, vocals, roll off the bass. If you want a little bit more presence, just put up at around 1,000, 1,100 kilohertz. That'll give you a little bit more presence with your vocals.
I love that. Look, he rose to the challenge, didn't he there, Dan? That was good, Dan. That was very good, Ricky. That's exactly. I'm just on the basis of that one alone, I may keep this as a regular spot on the show. Definitely, right? So, Dan, I think you've got a lot to live up to there. So, Dan, what's your just random tip, just any random tip, your best tip or whatever about compression?
Compression is a mystery to some people. I remember when I first started using compression, I didn't even know what the hell it did. All right. So you have to be very careful and understand the type of compression you're using is very critical, because not every instrument responds to the same compression. And be aware of transparent compression, which is going to give you a little sort of lift and, drop the top, bring up the bottom. And then certain compressors are going to give you some saturation and add color to your track. So before choosing a compressor, kind of understand the different types and understand which compressor works best with which type of instrument or vocal. Because if you use the wrong compressor, you may get creative results, but you may not get the desired results.
I love it. What a great little end to the show there. Finally, we had something educational for people. It was worth waiting, wasn't it, folks, for a whole, what was it, a bloody, something like, I don't know how long it's been, an hour, and it took an hour and 40 minutes to get there. But finally, we gave value to people. We gave value. I want to say a big congratulations to the 33 people who have stuck it out through this live show to get to those pure nuggets. Pure nuggets. I love the debate. I love the disagreement. It's absolutely awesome, especially amongst friends when it's done respectfully. That's my whole bag. You can have as many different opinions as you want, but I will say, in response to Ricky, it's never defendable to hit another person because of something they said. That's the end of the show, folks. We'll leave it right there. We're going to be back around about this time next week, and it's been lovely to have my wonderful guests here as well. It's been an absolute blast, guys. Thanks so much for being here in the live chat.
Thank you all.
And look out for the posts